All right, so we continue learning about the great mission work and the awesome missionaries that our church gets to support. And every time, and I've said this before, I get to meet a missionary in person, I think, they really are heroes. They really are doing awesome work, and it's great to see them when they are at work. And the missionaries that we're going to talk about tonight, I have had the honor of seeing them at work, and you all told me you've had the honor of being greeted by them in years past. We'll be talking about Marc and Kim Wyatt, and I heard that they came for a visit years ago, and they are great people. We'll get to know them more tonight, and for those who didn't meet them years ago, we'll see some of the people they have ministered to and ministered among. And when I think about the work that they do, Marc and Kim Wyatt, they will step in when change is happening and help is needed in the midst of that change. When a body of believers, when a community looks carefully at where they are and what's going on, how they got to that place, and where God might want them to turn next, there is often a movement or a shift. And Marc and Kim Wyatt are there when life is shifting, when people's lives have shifted geographically, and those folks' lives has been maybe kind of flipped, and they feel left out and alone, disconnected. That's where the Wyatts step in. So they step in moments of shifting, changing movement. So we're going to read the scripture passage tonight that we've been reading for the past few weeks, because it is a really great passage, just in general. And it really talks about the amazing impact, not just of Jesus, but of missionaries around the world, around the country, us here, what our work can and should be. So we're going to look at Ephesians chapter 2 again tonight. And as I read verses 12 through 22, I want you to listen for shifts, movements, changes, things that once were this way, now are this way, transitions. So listen this week for that kind of shifting, transition kind of movement. Okay, Ephesians 2, 12 through 22. Remember that at one time you were separate from Christ, excluded from citizenship in Israel, and foreigners to the covenants of the promise, without hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far away have been brought near through the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who has made the two one, and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility, by abolishing in his flesh the law with its commandments and regulations. His purpose was to create in himself one new man out of the two, thus making peace, and in this one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who are far away, and peace to those who are near. For through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. Consequently, you are no longer foreigners and aliens, but fellow citizens with God's people and members of God's household, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with Christ Jesus himself as the chief cornerstone. In him the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. Okay, so what words or phrases did you hear that describe a shift or movement or change in position of some kind?
A shift from hostility seems pretty.
Yes. A big change for what once was two communities that were so different, they were at odds with each other and even hostile, has now shifted. Not only are they not hostile with each other, but now they are each other. What other kind of shift, transition, change did you?
right at the beginning, excluded and now included.
Yes, yes. That initially there was an us inside group and a them outside group. And now the them is no longer excluded. So now the movement, it's a this kind of movement. It's a welcoming, included kind of movement. Yeah. Yeah. What might a community based on those kinds of changes in Ephesians 2 be like? Like if Paul is writing this to the Ephesians, what might their community have felt like with those things happening in it? How might it have looked or sounded?
Joyous.
Joyous,
But maybe a little unsettled too.
How so?
Just the change. People don't always adapt as positively to change as we might hope.
Yeah. I think you're both right. Because if the inside group had gotten used to, this is how we talk about things, this is our schedule, this is what our group meetings sound like, and suddenly now there is people who used to be in an outside group, kind of wary of, now we're all inside together, then the meeting is going to sound different. It might sound more joyous, but maybe there were different languages now, and maybe the different people of different cultures, maybe one likes to do this during worship, and the other people from the other group like to do this during worship. And sometimes people just really prefer to do worship the way that they really like to do it, And when there's different people now added into the mix, the joy gets bigger, but there can also be some, awkward tension, kind of figuring out, even best friends who become roommates in college, there can still be some friction. Even people who love each other and get married, I've heard there can still be some friction in marriages. I don't know. I'm just heard. So yeah, like when two people are two different kinds of people are now one, then yeah, there's going to be some yeah. I think you're both right. So that's why this Ephesians passage, we can read it as a challenge, both in the future and then if and when we can be a part of it, to understand that it is a continual challenge to do this kind of work. Because if we were to take these verses to heart, then something new would always be forming, because different kinds of people would keep coming into the group. And like we just said, when different kinds of people join the group or the family, it gives it a little different flavor or a different kind of sound. So Paul talks about identity here, that there used to be two identities, a little kind of wary of each other, and now they have a new identity. So he's trying to get them to be mindful of how they used to see themselves then, and how they can be sure that they are all one in Christ now. But this group here in Ephesus isn't the only thing that's changed. It says that Christ has moved all of the outsiders into the very embrace of God. So it's not just the Ephesian church, right? We should apply this ideally and hopefully to all of the world, all of God's children. The ones who used to not be allowed in, don't let in those people. We can't let in those people because we have, what did it call it? Like rules and regulation, laws and regulations against those people. So yes, the law with its commandments and regulations can't allow those people in. Now it says Jesus Christ has destroyed that barrier and let these new people brought near. They have now been brought near to God. So these Gentiles are not just adopting and copying all of the old Jewish laws and expressions of religion. It's not like they're assimilating into Judaism, but instead they are all gaining this new identity as a Christian community together. So it's not just, there used to be insiders, the Jews, and outsiders, the Gentiles. The Gentiles were all right, fine, we'll let you in. Now you can be Jews too. It wasn't that. It was those folks inside, those folks outside. Now there's no separation. Now there's just folks, and they're all a Christian community together. So it's not like the outsiders are now allowed into the cool club. The whole club itself is changing and expanding so that everybody is included. A new, stronger building is the result, with everyone transformed. That makes sense? It's not like now you outsiders can come in. It's, oh, now there's not even any walls. Now we're just all here instead of outside, inside. And so that's the kind of work, I think, that Marc and Kim Wyatt do. They have developed houses and ministry centers for people who come to the U.S. as refugees, and they call them welcome houses. The first one was started in the Research Triangle area, and they have expanded. There was one in Raleigh and then Durham, and then now in East Tennessee, and they're working on one in Black Mountain and in the eastern part of the state, I think. So they're trying to make a welcome house network, places for refugee families to find a stable landing home when they arrive. We talked about how stability is important to feel peace in life. We talked about that a few weeks ago. And so the Wyatts are helping provide that initial stability when refugees get here. So Marc and Kim, they partner with local churches in each of those areas to help families find apartments, furnishings, jobs, needed items. Sometimes refugees only get here with maybe a bag or not even that. And so they need a lot of stuff to get their life started. Now, since they are refugees, that's a specific legal term with the definition for people who have entered the U.S. through the formal refugee resettlement program of the State Department. And that has a long vetting process to it. There are about 50 million refugees in the world today, and the U.S. has a small cap of numbers that are allowed to come in. When people are approved to come in as refugees to the U.S., usually they've been living in refugee camps in some other country for many years because in their home country, they experienced either war or terrorism or persecution for things like their ethnicity or their faith, their political opinions, or gang violence. So wherever they had started, it was not safe. So they fled and became a refugee and filed a refugee application through the State Department. So when they get here, their vulnerability and desperation is met by the Wyatt's ministry of support, stability, and shelter. They get local church volunteers to cook dinners for the families when they arrive, to visit, to check in on them, to teach, help them learn English, and just kind of offer compassion. We've said over the last few weeks that word support can be a really big word and can hold a lot of different actions. Since 2015 is when they started, Welcome House, the original and all the Welcome House network, has been a home to hundreds and hundreds of refugees, just to name a few countries, from places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Burundi, Congo, Ethiopia, Syria, and many, many others. Now, Ukraine, after the past year, they've started helping Ukrainian refugees as well. And I spent a lot of good phone call conversation minutes last year when the Bochovar family ended up in Fletcher as refugees. I was talking to Marc Wyatt on the phone, and he was giving me great advice on how to be a help and do so responsibly, which I really, really appreciated. I said I need to keep him on retainer as my counsel, my legal counsel on retainer, because he knew what he was doing. Now, when refugees get here, they have no credit history, they have no job history here. So finding clean, affordable, safe housing is a challenge. And unfortunately, few landlords are willing to welcome refugees because landlords might see them as uncertain, unstable, not a dependable rent check, perhaps. But if a refugee family is supported, 95% are financially self-sufficient within 4 months of arriving in the U.S. So that's what the Wyatts are working on. That kind of support requires a whole community to welcome and help them. Now, like we said earlier with the Bible verses, as we read, walking alongside refugees impacts everyone involved. It's not just us helping them come into here to now be like us. It is, you all are here, now we are here together. Let us minister together, and then everyone is changed. One local church volunteer named Lorraine was helping a refugee from Burundi, a woman named Martha, and she'd been helping Martha for a few weeks, offering support in whatever Martha needed. But Martha was reluctant to use Lorraine's first name because in her culture in Burundi, calling an elder, a person who was older than you, by their first name was seen as disrespectful. So Martha, from Burundi, asked Lorraine, "May I call you grandmother instead?" Because of all the love that Lorraine had showed her. And Lorraine thought about it for a moment and said, "Well, if you do, I'm never letting you go." And from that moment, they were family, and they remain family to this day. Another refugee, Nicole, arrived 3 years ago, and now she is part of the leadership team of Welcome House, and she is known as, this is a quote, "everybody's mama," is how Nicole is referred to, because everyone knows they can ask her any question. Someone from elsewhere is now here, now part of the leadership team. So here you can hear again how everyone's changed. Not just them coming to be like us, but the walls of separation are opened, so everyone's changed. Everyone's changed. So when it comes to the support that the Wyatts help to organize, it can cover things like safe housing, affordable living conditions, basic household items, toothbrush, utensils, that kind of thing, serving as medical guides to doctor's appointments, helping people learn English who might not know it, showing families how to use American appliances. If they didn't grow up with a washer and a dryer or a washing machine or a microwave, and you're thrown into this culture that you don't know how anything operates, that is, just think of how difficult it would be just to know how to get some food and make some food. The Wyatts also organize school help, helping parents and teachers figure out what the notes say in kids' book bags, or attending parent-teacher conferences to help with the translation. Like we said, support. It's a simple word, but it can involve a lot of different things. So they are really doing what Ephesians describes. In that Ephesians 2 passage, it says, remember who you were. Yeah, you remember then? You remember back then? Right. But now, know that you have been changed. So in these acts of beloved community, old labels like citizen and refugee change to neighbors, friends. Everyone has changed. Okay, well, let's meet some of the folks who have been a part of Welcome House. And we're going to watch 2 videos. All right. Here's the first one. Let me know if I need to turn the volume up. Let me get it started.
Come on, computer, wake up.
Yeah, no.
Teach us our
Sorry. Is that too loud?
in my country. At the time, the political is not stable, so the soldier, the military have more power than the government. First, we arrive here, we don't know nobody. We just ourselves, our family. Nobody help us, nobody, hello. Even the communication also very difficult because it's kind of very strange country. If we saw somebody from the refugee or something new, we like to help them because we feel that the feeling before. So we want them to be very warm.
I help them as much as I can because when I see somebody newly came from other country, we feel like the way we came before. So I try to help them as much as we can. That's how we met with Kim and Mark.
We were in one of those neighborhoods carrying stuff when a fellow came up and he said, "Can I give you a hand?" Well, yes, I'm not going to turn down somebody who wants to help carry furniture up 3 flights of stairs. Not too long after that, here come 24 bottles of water. Thomas sat in the apartment and told everyone, "You're thirsty, here's water." He was just caught by the fact that someone did this for his family before they got here. They walked into a furnished apartment with groceries in the fridge and a hot meal for mama. When they got here, he wanted to pay it back. And he said, "Mark, anytime I'm not working, may I help you?" Yes, Thomas, please, I need your help.
People need to treat them like very kind, very open hearts. They need to be feel like they are home based. We have to be like their brothers or sisters so that they will be feel safe with us.
I was born and raised in an Afghan family in Afghanistan. Traditional, ordinary Afghan family. Every day I saw some Americans patrolling around our neighborhood. I was a kid, I'd already learned some basic words of English in school, so I gathered the nerves, I went up to the American soldiers and I said, "Hey, how are you?" That's how it all started. These guys were looking for a translator. I translated combat situations where the enemy was literally shooting and trying to kill us in front lines, and I was translating coordinations between the American soldiers and the Afghan soldiers. In the year of 2011 and 2012, most of the American soldiers were going to come back to America because their mission there was coming to an end, which meant for me, I didn't have protection anymore. I had to leave Afghanistan to run for safety. I left Afghanistan, went to Europe. After spending 4 years country hopping and knocking doors and trying to convince people that I was a good person, my American friends finally called me and said, "Hey, you have to go to the US Embassy in Germany. They have your visa available for you." So they'd already put in an immigration packet for me to come to America. They said, "You've saved our lives repeatedly. You've been wounded protecting us. Now the day has come where we need to save you." I went to the embassy. They had to take 1 more year of doing appropriate security checks, and then I was allowed to travel to America. I came to America as a refugee. Volunteers through some of the civic organizations that are here greet me at the airport. They brought me to a house called the Welcome House. That's when I met Uncle Mark and Aunt Kim, some of the greatest people that I've ever came across in my entire life. The Welcome House made it possible for me to take a deep breath and start taking those very initial, basic, small steps towards a life worth living here in America. We as individuals will have our strong days, and we will have those days where just nothing is working out. But what we can do as individuals, and also as communities, families, as people, what we can do is help the guy out who's trying to get on his feet. I promise you, there is more good in this world than there is bad. And that's what keeps this world running. We as people have to remember that we are one and not desert those who are in need today. It could happen to us.
Oh, man. That story especially. Gosh. Okay. So what did you feel while you watched those videos, which were just some of the people that Welcome House has ministered to? What are some things you know? What's that?
Gratitude
Gratitude for what?
for the people. The gratitude that there are people there to help people.
Yes. Yes.
Well, they treat them with respect as though they're on the same level, like we're your helper and you all are so needy and beneath us.
Mm-hmm.
They everybody, they welcomed them. I can use your help. I need your help.
Yeah. 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 That's exactly what Ephesians 2 was saying, you know? Like that's exactly what the passage that we read was saying. Yeah. Yeah.
I get this overwhelming sense of discipleship.
Mm.
Because they're coming in and then they become part of the movements and then they help somebody else who then becomes part. So it replicates itself.
Yeah.
These are not just people that, who help and then forget they want to be involved and help others.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what the church should be doing. The church shouldn't just make disciples. The church should make disciple makers as well. Not just, we're here to help you make sure you follow Jesus, but we're also here to equip you to help others follow Jesus. And so that they can join, so that those new people can join and be a part and bless the body. And then bring new people in who can come be a part and bless the body. Yeah? What did you notice about the work that Marc and Kim are doing through the Welcome House Network, either specifically or in general? What stood out to you about their work?
It seems pretty comprehensive,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems very hands-on, like real earthy needs,
Yeah.
like putting together a bed. So it's not way up here. It's really very elemental, it's essential kinds of daily
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah. Real life, real lives. What do you need?
And at least for Mark, you can tell that it's like he's all in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very sincere.
Yes. That is true. And all the times I've talked with both of them, I just think they are the most sincere, kindest people in the world. Or they're tied with about 20 other folks that I know. They are they are genuine, just genuine and kind people, and they know what they're doing. And that's why I call him when I need some advice, input, help with refugee ministry, because they know what they're doing and they do it with kindness, and they are about helping real people in their real lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Do they have, maybe oxymoron, but do they have translators with them, or do they build on others who are translating?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the country that the refugee family might be from. And they really do build a network of people. And they'll usually get a heads up about there's this family from the Congo, maybe that's gonna come, this week. And so they will contact people, in their area, the community, in the Welcome House Network, and they'll find somebody from the Congo who speaks either Swahili or Lingala, one of the dialects in Congo, and they'll make sure that the new folks have someone who can help. And I don't know what they do if it's like a new country, a new person, but they can figure it out, I bet they can figure something out. There's an app, that's right, there's an app for that, I'm sure. And I'm sure that has happened, that it'll be someone from a new country that they don't have a contact yet, but perhaps they welcome that as reason to celebrate. Like, oh, you're the first person from, Burundi or something that we have gotten a chance to minister to. Good for us. Now we'll be so much better equipped to minister to the next family from Burundi. And instead of seeing it as a challenge, seeing it as a blessing that can be used to help more and help more and help more.
And also a barrier, because.
Yeah.
That's the languages.
Yes.
Do that, yeah.
Yes. Instead of seeing it as a language barrier, see it as the opportunity for more language connections. Yeah. It's easy to get distraught when things aren't as easy as we would like them to be, and just go, what are we gonna do now? We had this plan and now it's not going to plan. It's easy to just kind of give up. But like Jay said, there's so much more good in the world than there is bad. And there's so many more blessings that are out there. It's just easy to get, it's tempting to get bogged down with the bad. I would, for a refugee family, I can't imagine what that feels like. There would be a lot of bad to focus on. But the Wyatts, the Welcome House Network, they are out there showing good and showing welcome and giving these new refugee families reasons to be thankful, reasons to give thanks. Well, last question, how can we let this ministry that we do support with our missions giving, how can we let them inspire us in our work in our community?
Maybe start some conversation and ask them, what would you like to do? Or maybe give them, 2 or 3 options, and then build that out.
Mm-hmm. When you say ask them, what do you mean? What does that look like?
Well, it's first you meet them with saying something about yourself that's simple and keeping it, just a few words, and then they'll encourage them what they would like to do.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like we said over the last few weeks, here in our beautiful, awesome community, it might be a little hard to recognize what the needs really are. Like in North Raleigh, in the apartment complex that Marc and Kim do a lot of their work in, it's pretty darn easy to see what the needs are. There's a lot of Congolese families in this one apartment complex. They helped work with one of them to start a church, and that was the relationship that I got to be a part of. And that was an obvious kind of big need. And, here in Weaverville, we don't have some kind of obvious big, Congolese population or something that we can just kind of look out and notice. So that means we're gonna have to get out there and strike up some conversations and ask how folks are doing and what their needs are, and be willing to, like the Wyatts do, be willing to share life, like the nitty-gritty, to be there, to build something, to build a ramp, or to put this together, or to watch a kid so the parent can work, or whatever the need is. Be willing to to step out and do that in a personal way, and that will be the most impactful thing that we could do for them and for us. Because in doing so, in sharing that real life, in the trenches, nitty-gritty kind of ministry, we are bonded. And suddenly, it's not a them out there with a need, it's us as neighbors who are helping and blessing each other, and then we are all changed. And that's what's happening here in Ephesians 2. Yeah. All right, last word. Goes up. Second
We could ask them what they would like to do.
Yes.
Maybe mention a couple things.
Yeah.
Come with me and let's see
brainstorm.
what we can do.
Yes. Pat.
I'm reading a book, The Beekeeper of Aleppo.
Whoa, that sounds interesting.
And it is about a couple from Syria who travel through Turkey and they are refugees. And the author is a lady that spent several years in those countries working. I can't remember the organization she was working for. What are some of the big?
Like the Red Cross or UN?
Yeah, but
or
it wasn't the Red Cross.
something like that.
But I'm almost to the end of the book, and these studies have reminded me so much, because these refugees, they've lost their son, and it's an interesting book. It's heavy.
I bet it's a tough story.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a very tough story.
Well, good. I'm glad it's inspiring you and kind of opening your eyes to what has gone on in the world and people's lives.
It has.
Good. And I hope that these studies help open our eyes about what's going on in the world and people's lives. And then with our eyes open, we can walk around our community and maybe see our neighbors in a little better light and figure out what they might need in their real lives. Let's pause there, and then we'll talk some more. And next week is Ash Wednesday, so we'll have our Ash Wednesday service next week. And until then, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Amen.